Are Your Name and Weathering with You too similar thematically? Some people think so, but I believe the answer is a resounding no, and that's what I'll argue in this channel segment I'm calling Matrix Analyzes Anime. Just as a warning, this video will contain heavy spoilers for both movies, and the discussion will assume you've seen both and know the plot. Kimi no Nawa and Tenki no Ko, known in English as Your Name and Weathering with You, are the two most recent films from visionary director Makoto Shinkai, who is also known for his earlier works such as 5 centimeters per second and The Garden of Words. His popularity experienced an explosion with the release of Your Name in 2016 and Weathering with You in 2019, as both films are among the top 10 highest-grossing anime movies of all time. Both films have received critical acclaim on top of their box office success, too. On the surface, Your Name and Weathering with You appear to be very different outside of their breathtaking animation and soundtracks packed with upbeat Radwimps songs. The former explores the concept of a boy and girl swapping bodies from time to time, then adds in a twist with time travel and a deadly comet impact. The latter explores a Tokyo plagued by harsh, unrelenting rain and a girl with the power to temporarily alleviate it. If you look beyond the unique overall plots of both films, though, some similarities start to emerge. Both movies include a teenage love story, both feature natural disasters and supernatural forces, and most strikingly, both include a sequence in which the main heroine appears to die, after which the male lead must venture into a spiritual realm and save her life. Because of those elements, some people hold the opinion that Weathering with You is more of a rehash of the same ideas with a different frame, and an attempt for Makoto Shinkai to simply capitalize on the success of Your Name. For an example of this, I want to go to the bastion of all the best opinions on anime, My Anime List. If you go to the page for Weathering with You, the very first review you'll see, which over 600 people found helpful, rates the movie a 5 out of 10 and begins with the familiar meme, "Hey, can I copy your work? Of course. Make sure to just change it up a bit so it doesn't look too obvious." I'm not going to read the entire review, but here are some snippets that encapsulate a lot of it. The plot plays out exactly the same too, with the first half of the movie coming up with a mix of melancholic but very cheerful type of movie, and the second half had drastic changes in tone, becoming dark and full of intensity. Most of the jokes you've seen in Kimi no Nawa, and it didn't give any variety, and it seems as though Shinkai's very content with his usual formula. To be clear, I'm not trying to bash this user's opinion or rating of the movie. I think it's actually a reasonable take upon a first watch, but I believe that closer examination of the two movies reveals far more thematic and structural differences than it does similarities. I want to highlight several areas in which the two films differ. First, side characters acting as friends versus family. 2. Seeing versus not seeing the impact of the major choice. 3. Passive versus active powers. 4. The ways in which the main characters are opposites. And 5. A lightning round with a few notes that weren't big enough for their own category. Let's start with what I think is the biggest and most impactful difference between Your Name and Weathering with You: the way side characters act as friends versus family. In Your Name, the main characters Taki and Mitsuha both have families, but they spend the vast majority of their time either alone or in the company of friends. Taki's friends, Tsukasa, Shinta, and Miki, and Mitsuha's friends, Tessie and Sayaka, both get to experience a friendship with Taki and Mitsuha, despite being largely in the dark about the body switching going on. We get amusing scenes like Taki's school friends finding him strangely attractive and his coworker friend agreeing to a date because he fixed her skirt, and Mitsuha's friends observing her acting wild and unkempt. It's because these friendships already exist, and the characters are already incredibly familiar with the two leads, that we're able to more clearly see the stark contrast between Taki and Mitsuha's personalities. We're also able to observe more clearly just how much Taki and Mitsuha change by experiencing each other's lives. At first, their friends simply point out that they've been acting strange, but eventually they realize that they have undergone a huge personality shift and are not the same people they once knew. The personality transformation that Taki and Mitsuha's friends observe serves as the impetus for them to help with the outlandish things that the leads need toward the end of the movie. It's unlikely that Taki's friends would have made a spontaneous trip to the countryside with him, or Mitsuha's friends would have put their reputations at risk to evacuate the town based on Mitsuha, inhabited by Taki's, warning of an asteroid impact, without this observation. They act because although they don't know why Taki and Mitsuha are different, they understand that something important has fundamentally changed them. However, while the side characters in Your Name are fantastic friends, they still have a degree of distance from the main characters due to not truly understanding what is going on. As a result, the intimate moments in the movie are almost exclusively shared by Taki and Mitsuha. In contrast, Weathering with You is all about building an intimate family from side characters who were previously unconnected and knew nothing of each other. The main male lead, Hodoka Morishima, has parents, but it feels as if he does not. He doesn't seem to have any real connection to them and never once expresses any desire to return to his home. As the story progresses, he begins to integrate more and more characters into his life as a family. The first person he meets, Keisuke Suga, saves his life and eventually offers him a job. Suga himself has lost his wife and rarely gets to see his daughter, and gradually becomes more of a guardian figure to Hodoka, eventually providing the cover he needs to save Hina at risk to his own safety. In return, Hodoka helps provide a path for Suga to turn his life around and see his daughter more regularly. In addition, once Hodoka meets his love interest Hina, and they've saved each other from hunger and sleazy men, Hodoka is introduced to Hina's younger brother Nagi. Hodoka instantly treats Nagi as if he were his own brother, confiding in him and protecting him as fervently as he does for Hina. The family dynamic that develops between the three of them serves to unite Hodoka and Hina further and sweeten their romance. Not to be left out of the family discussion are Ame the stray cat, who Hodoka takes in the same way Suga took him in, and Natsumi, Suga's niece, who seemingly has nowhere else to go but develops such a protective bond with Hodoka that she's willing to help him evade police to search for Hina. In all, there is a large degree of familial intimacy in Weathering with You that provides a wholly different dynamic from the strong friendships in Your Name. There's a lot more I could say about family in Weathering with You, but I want to move on to point number 2. Seeing versus not seeing the impact of the ultimate choice in the movie. In Your Name, Taki learns that his interactions with Mitsuha have all been in the past and that she died in the comet disaster. However, upon traveling to Mitsuha's former hometown, Taki is given one final chance to switch into her body and save everyone. He is successful, and as a result, Mitsuha's town survives. We don't really get to consider the consequences of that decision, though, or see its impact aside from brief glimpses of the townspeople in Tokyo and Taki and Mitsuha's ultimate reunion. Taki and Mitsuha both lose their memories of each other, and so never have to grapple with the fact that they have effectively transformed the world, rewriting 3 years of history in which hundreds of people who were dead are now alive. That means they impacted not only the lives of all the survivors, but also everyone who came into contact with those people since. To be fair, going into that likely would have made the ending to the movie too convoluted, and taken the focus off of Taki and Mitsuha meeting again, so I'm not saying it should have happened. I bring it up to emphasize how different it is from Weathering with You, which does display the consequences of its climactic choice, and I think that is one of the reasons why it is so emotionally impactful. Hodoka knows that Hina's disappearance has caused the perpetual rain to stop. He chooses to bring her back, and she chooses to come back, despite knowing that with her return will come the rain's return as well. Hodoka proclaims that he wants Hina more than any blue sky, and in the end of the movie, we see that large portions of Tokyo have sunk into the sea. I've been enthralled with this choice ever since I first saw the movie, as it's rare to see the rejection of a single sacrifice for the lives of many. Characters are allowed to be selfish, negatively impacting the world for the sake of love, but I think it's a choice many people would make but would never admit to. I'm glad we got to see this avenue explored, and the movie still manages to end on a hopeful note. Side characters are the happiest they've been for the entire movie, greenery sprouts from all corners, and a wise old woman, who is actually the grandmother of Taki from Your Name, explains that nature is simply returning to the state it was in hundreds of years ago before industrial influence. The third point I want to make about these two movies is the difference between passive and active powers. In Your Name, Taki and Mitsuha's body switching is entirely involuntary, and the characters never know when it will happen, so they are mostly taken along for the ride as they try not to act in a way that is too unbefitting of the other person. The only time there is a voluntary switch is when Taki drinks Mitsuha's sake from the shrine toward the end of the movie, which contains her spit and provides them with their first physical connection. In contrast, Hina's power as a sunshine girl in Weathering with You is an incredibly active power. Hina chooses to pray over a certain spot, and the weather obeys her and clears for a short time. She has the ability to activate it whenever and wherever she wants, with a 100% success rate. Ultimately, she is able to end the entire barrage of rain by trading her life, and once that decision gets rejected, she becomes powerless. While Your Name's passive power provided an air of unpredictability that kept watchers on the edge of their seats, Weathering with You's active power accomplished a similar sense of wonder by contrasting the scale of its world-altering power with its tiny teenage vessel. For me, the most memorable moment of the movie is the single instance where Hina uses her power destructively instead of peacefully, summoning lightning to blow up a truck and save Hodoka from arrest. Taki and Hina both have one time where they use their powers in a different way than normal, and those moments command viewers' attention and are truly riveting. The last big area I want to compare between these two movies is how the two sets of main characters differ from one another. I left this for last because it's fairly basic, but it's also a really cool dynamic. Taki and Mitsuha are opposites in that they come from completely different types of lives. Taki's from the city, goes to a big school, works in a restaurant, and just generally has a busier and more crowded life. Mitsuha lives in a village with few people and is part of upkeeping the village's traditions, things that serve to isolate her from a lot of the other people her age. A big part of the magic in Your Name is watching Taki and Mitsuha grapple with being in such drastically different settings, and building an appreciation for that which is different from them. In Weathering with You, Hodoka and Hina are in largely similar situations. They're both relatively alone in a big city, lacking parental support, without money, desperately trying to dodge police and social services, and determined to make their own way. However, while their circumstances are comparable, they are spiritual opposites. Hina is a sunshine girl, blessed by a fox god with the ability to clear the weather. As explained by a psychic in the movie, sunshine girls are hardworking but weak-hearted. Hodoka is the opposite, a rain boy. As Reddit user Arcturus Flyer pointed out, based on certain dates in the movie, Hodoka's arrival in Tokyo coincides with the start of the endless rain. Even before Hodoka arrives in Tokyo, we see it raining on the island where he lives, with sunlight retreating across the ocean from him. Rain boys yearn for water, according to the psychic, which is symbolized by the raindrop necklace Hina wears, and seen in Hodoka's declaration that he prefers Hina's existence at the expense of her sunshine powers, even though it will bring the rain. As a side note, I want to point out that I believe Suga is a rain boy as well. According to the psychic, rain boys also like to drink a lot, which is supported by multiple scenes of Suga being drunk. In addition, Suga himself meets the yearns for water description in the scene where he opens his window and floods his apartment, finally disturbing its untouched state from before his wife died. And finally, it's time for the lightning round, where I want to quickly mention a few other quick observations that I think set Your Name and Weathering with You apart. The first is the music. In an after-the-movie interview with Makoto Shinkai, he revealed that for Weathering with You, he sent the script to the lead singer of Radwimps, received songs back from him, and animated scenes inspired by that music. He views the film as more of a collaboration in that respect, compared to Your Name where they didn't work directly together. I think that the songs in Weathering with You definitely feel more purposeful and carry a heavier weight. The second thing I wanted to note is the way the two leads in Your Name don't interact with each other in person except for a few scenes in the entire movie. While Weathering with You has a more traditional romance angle, I think Your Name is truly groundbreaking in that it fostered a love between two characters who could only communicate by living each other's lives and jotting down a few notes for each other. The last element I wanted to talk about is the inclusion of more mature themes in Weathering with You. Your Name has its share of heavy things, especially the devastation and death caused by the comet, but Weathering with You deals with even darker concepts. There's a literal Chekhov's gun, and multiple tense moments where it seems as if someone might get shot. Suga deals with an addiction to smoking, which keeps him from seeing his asthmatic daughter often, and Hodoka saves Hina from being hired to do some kind of lewd work as an underage girl. There's plenty more I could say about both of these movies, and I'm sure if you watch them again you'll notice things I didn't think of. I'd love to know your opinion. Are Your Name and Weathering with You too similar, or do you agree with me that they do enough differently to stay unique? Thanks for watching my analysis. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing, as that will help me out a lot as I try to grow as a channel. I'm Matrix from Matrix A&M, Anime, and more, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks again, and have a great day.